Heat fans, I want to make sure you're subscribed, but also part of the Noti gang, because we're dropping content on a daily basis, whether it be a video like this one, a YouTube short, or a live watch party, because we go live for most of the Miami Heat games. So make sure you're subscribed, but make sure you also have those notifications turned on, and make sure it's clicked onto all rather than personalized so you never miss a piece of Miami Heat news. Speaking of Miami Heat news, we have a lot to discuss on today's episode of the Heat Report by Chat Sports. I am Nick Roloff because we have injury updates on Terry Rozier and Jaime Jaquez Jr. Both of them missed Monday's game against the 76ers, the last game for Miami. 5-day break, playing tomorrow against the Dallas Mavericks. Let's talk about if they are going to be able to go. We're going to start with the good news. I produced a show earlier today with Joey Peterson. He said he likes to start with the bad news. I disagree. Let's start with the good news, and this one is on Terry Rozier because the Heat actually held a practice on Thursday afternoon because of the layoff, rare practice during the season, and a lot of news came out from it. And this one on Rozier, who had an MRI after missing that game on Monday against the Sixers due to right foot discomfort, said the MRI came back negative, said the foot has been bothering him for the entire season, but hopes to return on Sunday against the Dallas Mavericks, which, by the way, they will be without Luka Doncic, who is set to miss a week due to a wrist injury. But specifically on Terry Rozier, the Heat need him to turn it around. Remember, folks, he was the prized acquisition at last year's NBA trade deadline, and Pat Riley dealt very valuable assets, a 2027 first-round pick that's top 10 protected, and Kyle Lowry, who was an expiring $29.9 million contract. Instead of letting that expire and using it in free agency this past summer, they used it to go out and acquire Rozier, and he simply just has not been good this season. Now, he was interesting last year. We'll talk about that in just a second, but it has not been a good start for Mr. Scary Terry to start this season. And the issue is not his raw numbers, because I don't really have an issue with him averaging 13 a game, 3.5 assists, 4 rebounds, because ideally he's your fourth scorer behind Tyler Hero, Bam, and Jimmy Butler. And if that's your fourth scorer, I have no issue with that. But the thing is, I need him to be averaging these numbers on good efficiency, 45% from the field, 37, 38% from three, because we know he's capable of putting up those type of efficient numbers. And if he does do that efficiency, well, then his points per game total will jump up closer to 14.5, 15 points per game, and his numbers look really good. And here's my thing. And I know some Heat fans out there might say, well, if he's been bothered by this right foot injury and this discomfort this entire year, well, no wonder why he's not playing well. I don't want to hear excuses about the foot. I'm sorry, does that make me a bad person? I hope not. But here's the thing. If you're too injured and you're going to use the injury excuse to show why you're playing bad, then don't go play. Get healthy. I would rather have you sit out 2.5, 3 weeks, get fully healthy, and then return and give me good, efficient basketball than have you play out there 65, 70% compromised because the right foot is bothering you. Because when he's missing layups, he's not able to defend, and he's turning the ball over, that hurts the team way more than what he provides if that foot injury is really bothering him. So I do not want to hear the excuse that he's injured and that's why he's playing bad. If you are going to play, I need you to be productive. Hopefully it doesn't make me a bad person, but I just simply would rather have a healthy Drew Smith out there than a 65% Terry Rozier and wait for the 100% Rozier to be back in 2 or 3 weeks. We detailed how bad of a start it's been for Terry Rozier, and if you watched Friday afternoon's video, you would know how bad it is for Terry. Will he turn it around? Type Y for yes or type N for no. As I said on yesterday's show, if you watched, maybe I just need to stay mellow. Shout out to Mellow Seltzer, my new favorite drink. If you have any questions on Mellow Seltzer, by the way, hit me up on social media at Nick_Roloff. But I hope that Rozier will have a similar arc or trajectory with the Miami Heat this season as he did last year, because we have detailed the numbers in depth in the past. In the first 10 games that he played with Miami last season, after he was traded from Charlotte, he averaged 12 points a game, shooting under 40% from the field and shooting 23% from beyond the arc. It was a horrific start for Terry Rozier. But if you remember as well, he ended the season with Miami in the 31 games, so the following 21 games were outstanding outstanding because he finished the year in the 30 games with Miami, averaging 16.5 points per game, shooting 43% from the field and 37% from three. So to go from these numbers to the numbers I just said out loud detailed how well he played in the final 21 games, the final 3 weeks of basketball for the Miami Heat before he suffered that neck injury. So we know that Rozier can fit with this Heat team. He just needs to do it and show me that he is the guy we thought we traded for last season. But I will say this, and I threw out this idea on yesterday's show. I'm telling you, if you want more on Rozier, go watch yesterday's episode. That's why you need to be subscribed and turn the notifications on too, by the way. But I think Terry Rozier should be the sixth man for the Miami Heat because him and Tyler Hero have not been effective this season as a backcourt. And I laid out why I didn't think it was going to work between the two of them in the offseason. They both struggled at finishing inside the restricted area that last season. Hero's done much better at this year. Rozier has not. And they're both undersized and not good defensively. And it's kind of shown and bled through this season. They are the most used duo this season for the Miami Heat, playing 331 minutes. And they're a net negative 1.8 rating. And the true shooting percentage is not as high as I'd want it to be. And the pace is what is actually more frustrating. Only getting about 98% or possessions per 48 minutes, that is, rather than the 100 plus you'd want to see. And that's why I think Duncan Robinson should be the starter for the Miami Heat, because when Hero and Duncan have shared the court together in the 101 minutes they have played, the offensive rating jumps way up when you compare it to Rozier. The defensive rating actually gets way better, and you have a net rating of 21.9. It's been one of the best duos for the Miami Heat this season when you combine the volume of minutes actually played to their rating on the floor, and you see that pace much better, 101.57 possessions in 48 minutes. I would like to see Duncan and Tyler Hero be your starting backcourt for the rest of the season and have Rozier be your sixth man. And then once Jaime Jaquez Jr. returns, well, guess what? You have a super bench with Jaime as your seventh man, Terry Rozier as your sixth man, and maybe you just have a more well-rounded roster. Come on, Spo. Make the switch. I know everyone wants Kel'el Ware to go in the starting lineup. Is that be the switch? My switch in the starting lineup is actually moving Rozier to the bench. All right, we just mentioned Jaime potentially coming off the bench. Well, it's time to get into the bad injury news around the Miami Heat, and it surrounds Jaime Jaquez Jr. We obviously know that he sprained his ankle last Sunday against the Indiana Pacers. Well, at today's practice, Rozier and Josh Richardson and Triple J did not practice. Next game for Miami is obviously Sunday, but I did want to showcase this as well, is that Jaquez was shooting around, putting in some work after practice, not participating in the real thing, but getting shots up following the actual practice with that sprained ankle. And it's an interesting timeline for Triple J because he did suffer that injury last Sunday against the Pacers early in that game against Indiana. This Sunday, tomorrow, against the Dallas Mavericks would mark 7 days, 1 week, since suffering that injury. And the reason why that's important to me, because it depends on how severe the ankle sprain is, whether it's a high ankle sprain, low ankle sprain, and the grade/severity. But Jimmy Butler turned his ankle and had a sprained ankle as well, and he was out 9 games. Remember, that Friday night game against Denver, he sprained his ankle in the first quarter, and he did not return for 9 games. He missed an entire week plus 2 or 3 days, and made his return this past Monday against Philadelphia. So if you are doing the math and doing the time, Jaime Jaquez Jr., if he's out the same time as Jimmy Butler, would put him close to returning either Tuesday against the Milwaukee Bucks or Wednesday against the Charlotte Hornets, assuming the injury is the same severity as Jimmy Butler's. We'll see if Jaime Jaquez Jr. plays on Sunday. I think it's a long shot, but I would probably put it closer to Tuesday or Wednesday for the second-year man out of UCLA. But maybe you are an optimist. Maybe you think he will play tomorrow against the Dallas Mavericks. Well, if you do, type P down in the comments section. Type W if you don't think he will. Let me know your thoughts down below. He's someone that, like Terry Rozier, needs to get going for the Miami Heat. He has not had a good start to the second season of his NBA career. Remember last year, he was a godsend. In the first half of the season, he was averaging 14.5, 15 points a game and was in the top 5 Rookie of the Year voting, and I think it actually was top 3. Well, this season, it has not been that same type of production we were accustomed to a year ago. The efficiency is fine, and you're seeing a little bit of an uptick in his three-point shot, but the overall efficiency isn't there, and he's averaging about 4 or 5 less points per game. It just hasn't been a start that we were hoping for Jaime. A lot of people, myself included, had him listed number one reason why the Heat were going to achieve more this season than people thought they were, because I thought a second-year improved Triple J defensively, offensively, in his playmaking, his three-point shooting would have just led him to be one of the leading candidates for Sixth Man of the Year off the bench and emergence as a potential long-term starting replacement for Jimmy Butler. But it has not looked that way early on, and if we're going to be honest, it almost looks like every single player on the Miami Heat has regressed this season besides one. The only player that has improved from last year, in my opinion, is Tyler Hero. Jimmy looks the same or worse. Bam definitely looks worse. Rozier looks worse. Duncan Robinson looks about the same. And then we've obviously seen Jaime not play as well either. Tyler Hero is the only one that really took a step forward from last season in terms of the returning players for the Miami Heat. All right, let's round out the show with this. Remaining November schedule for Miami. The Heat are 6-7 through the first 13 games, and these are the final 4 games of the month before they get into December. This Sunday at home against Dallas. Home on Tuesday against the Bucks, which is an NBA Cup game, group play. In Charlotte on Wednesday, and then the final game of the month is on Friday against the Raptors, also an NBA Cup game. And I wanted to show this schedule because Brady Hawk of 5 Reasons Sports Network said on Twitter, what do you think the record will be for Miami in the final 4 games of November? I responded to that tweet and said it should be 4-0. And to be honest, it needs to be 4-0. The Heat are 6-7, and somehow that is good enough to be the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference right now. The Eastern compared to the West is an absolute joke. 8-7 is the Mavericks record, by the way. That's 11th in the West. So if you're doing the math, the Heat would be, 13th, 15th in the Western Conference based on their record. They need to start stacking some wins. A very favorable week here ahead of us. Mavericks at home without Luka Doncic, and you're on 5 days rest. Then you play Milwaukee at home, a team that has really struggled. Although a back-to-back on Wednesday, the Hornets are not a good team. You should be able to win that one. And then after Thanksgiving, a Black Friday night game against the Toronto Raptors in an NBA Cup game. And guess what, folks? If you go 4-0, that means you get 2 wins against Toronto and Milwaukee in the NBA Cup. You go 3-1 in group play, and you'll likely get into the knockout portion of that tournament, which will just make some more intriguing games in the middle of December. Should be 4-0, needs to be 4-0. Let's end the month 10-7 and head into a December that could include some fun matchups in Christmas time and the NBA Cup knockout stage to try to stack these wins and get the seeding good in the Eastern Conference. All right, I'll do it for today's show. No live show, unfortunately, tomorrow for the Mavericks game. Got to do Dolphins live for Sunday, Week 12, but we'll try to go live as much as possible, folks. I know it's a tough week with Thanksgiving this upcoming week as well, but we'll go fully live starting in December. You can count on that. So make sure you're subscribed and make sure you have your notifications turned on.